person continue by Cary, Lopez.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carlos. Good morning, everyone. And as Carlos mentioned, I will be utilizing most of the time this morning for collaboration. So rather than having a Q&A session at the end of the session today, if you wouldn't mind putting your questions in the chat, during the breakout session, I will go through and answer those and add them to a Google Doc where we're keeping track of all the questions and answers. Good morning. My name is Cary Lopez. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the University Design Institute. And I wanted to give a shout out to Manu Ipe. She was originally going to co-host this with me this morning, and times are crazy, my friends. It's a little difficult sometimes to manage all the things we have going on, but I wanted to acknowledge that we did co-create this presentation together, so I wanted to give her that shout out. So in today's meeting, or today's session, we're going to be talking through, not only what do teams need from leaders, but what leaders need from teams. And I think that's maybe a topic we focus on less sometimes. And so hopefully we'll deep dive into that and then go into some breakout sessions and learn from each other. So what do teams need from leaders in times of crisis? And frankly, if you Google this, I think there's over 1 billion or maybe even more than that hits on this right now. There's a lot of discussion on this topic right now. And I love this metaphor of this picture for really describing this. So many of us are either on the deck of a boat in this storm that is the COVID crisis, or we're even below the deck, right? We're managing the ship, we're keeping it afloat. And in the captain's bridge, where the leaders get to sit, they have tools at their disposal. They have compasses and maps, and they're keeping us on track. But what I want to point out is it's not like they can see all the way to the destination here, right? The horizon is still pretty fuzzy, and all we can really see is the waves coming at us as they're coming. And, the tendency to believe that a leader might have all the answers, this view of this deck just gives me the perfect analogy to talk through. There may not be answers in this environment right now. And even in that case, what can we do to help dampen the anxiety that comes from this uncertainty and help work through some of that sense of stress and anxiety? So what do people need in times of crisis? At all times, we need to feel safe, but especially in times of uncertainty. And psychologically, uncertainty creates anxiety. They are inextricably linked in our neurons. So we know that people are anxious right now. We know that there's a high level of stress going on. So how do we create not only a sense of safety, but also a sense of positive culture, right? That's the ultimate challenge. And as Manu has worked with leaders, not just at ASU, but in organizations around the world, we believe that there are 3 keys to success in a positive culture, especially in a time of crisis, but just in general. And those are the 3 C's, communication, community, and collaboration. So from a communication standpoint, I think sometimes our tendency is to not communicate until we feel like we have all the answers. And just like that view of the deck from the bridge, especially in this environment, the answers might not be there. They might not exist. And so rather than withholding information and waiting for this perfect event when somehow we magically have all those answers, rather it's focusing on what information do my people need from me now? What is urgent and important? What do they need to know? And how can they collaborate in new and different ways, all while kind of creating this sense of community and sense of belonging. So what is urgent and important? Creating clear expectations. So in many cases, the core of our jobs has not changed, but the modality in which we deliver that has, and maybe even some of those key tasks and deliverables themselves have changed. So being very clear about what those are, what the expectations are, being very clear about any policies and procedures, what is a non-negotiable and what is flexible, where can we look to be a little bit more giving in some of our expectations. And this third point, aligning with core missions and values, to me sometimes feels like a contradiction. On the one hand, our answer is, well, yeah, duh, of course we're still, aspiring to the values of the charter and our core design principles. But on the other hand, it can almost feel I will worry about that when I have time, right? I've got expectations in front of me right now. I'm up to my neck in trying to just deal with everything that's going on. I'll worry about the nice, warm, fuzzy stuff later. But ultimately, aligning with our core mission and values is what helps people feel a sense of purpose in their work. And the more that we feel that we are impacting positively the people that we're serving, the more engaged we feel, the more we feel we have a little bit of control in this time of craziness. So being explicit about how, even though maybe deliverables have changed, timelines have changed, the way we engage has changed, aligning with our core missions and values is still a critical element that a leader can provide. What do they need to know? I feel a little bit like I'm preaching to the choir here with the technology and work tools, but I think it's not just what is available, but it's what is our team going to be using. Just for a quick example, we had started experimenting with Reich as a project management tool before all of this craziness happened. And what we found was we couldn't add more cognitive complexity on top of the team right now. That using a simple Google Doc with, here's my quick update, here's what I need help with, is actually a better tool for us right now. So even though the technology is available, what tool is best for us as a team to continue moving forward? Obviously, there's concerns about not just physical health, but with all of this uncertainty and anxiety and stress, we know that it's putting pressure on people's mental health. So as a leader, sharing what resources are available to our people is really important. And then along with this sense of maybe being at the whim of the world and just being tossed around, the ship at sea, granting people some element of agency, giving them some way to empower themselves and be creative is one of the most engaging and uplifting experiences we can have right now. So as a leader, what can you do to help foster breaking down of silos, maybe forming new or different teams in ways that they haven't been looked at before? How can you encourage your team to share what they're learning with each other so that they can leverage and kind of piggyback off of those learnings right now? And then most importantly, creating this community and sense of belonging. I think we're all experiencing this phenomenon called Zoom fatigue. I know I definitely have, and especially in this era where this is really the only way we can engage. I had a conversation with a coworker over the phone, like literally holding it to my head the other day, and we both commented on how almost novel that felt, because I didn't have to worry about, is my hair okay, and did I actually choose to put makeup on today, and all those fun things when you know you're going to be on camera. But it was more just I could focus on her voice and her tone, and it was new and different and kind of exciting. So in creating multiple mechanisms for connection, using Slack, using email, recognition and appreciation has probably never been more important right now. And it's not just team efforts, but it can also be celebrations, birthdays, work anniversaries, end of school years coming up for many of us. So we'll maybe be able to drop the role of homeschool teacher on top of all the other, roles we're juggling right now. Building in those mechanisms for celebration and appreciation is really key. And then finally, not just asking your team to be compassionate to each other, but really embodying compassion for your team. Compassion for yourself, maybe having some vulnerability and acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, but you're working towards finding those solutions with them. Focusing on the work outcomes rather than the work processes, and plotting creativity. So those are ways that leaders can help support teams right now. And I welcome any thoughts you have in the chat, anything you feel we missed as Manu and I were brainstorming on this. But I really wanted to focus on what leaders need from teams, because I feel like this is a topic that might not get as much focus. So the first thing I think is something that at least I have found to be difficult in our culture. So while on the one hand, we are incredibly innovative and empowered to find solutions, and we tend to just go, right? If we see an issue or we see something, we figure out how to solve that problem. One of the impacts of that or effects of that might be we don't even recognize sometimes when we do need help. And just as an example, one of my teammates had started to miss a couple meetings because his back was spasming and he was in quite a bit of pain. And it wasn't until he recognized that it's because he's been sitting in his dining room chair, his hard wooden dining room chair, since COVID started, instead of his nice stand-up desk or ergonomic chair at the office, that he recognized I didn't even think of that as being a tool that I needed. And when he mentioned it, and somewhat sheepishly, because he didn't want to put a burden on anybody, turns out our operations manager had already put a whole process in place on how to sanitize any equipment that was left at the office. You pulled up your van or car or truck. They had people there who can help you load it, and off you go. It was that simple. But it was that needing that recognition of, okay, I need some help, and I need to be vulnerable enough to ask for that help. So being proactive in that communication and not expecting your leader to be a mind reader is, I think, always critical, but maybe especially critical in this kind of a crisis. Secondly, I thought this was fascinating. So this actually came from a couple of team leaders that I had crowdsourced to build this presentation. And they had brought up that one of the most powerful things they had had a team member do was ask, why are we doing this task? Why do we do it this way? What was the intended outcome? Are we still achieving that outcome? Or is this just one of those, well, we've always done it and we've always done it this way kind of issues? And when they stopped and paused, and in some ways this crisis has cast a new light on some of the work that we do, and they really leaned into this question of, this feels like busy work. Why does this feel like busy work? And not to complain, not to bellyache, but to genuinely question and reflect on, is it because I'm in a mental place where concentration is difficult and it's a little hard right now sometimes, for myself at least, to focus in certain ways? Or am I feeling like this is busy work because this has become busy work and is no longer necessary? And so in doing this, we can have an opportunity right now to maybe push at some of these areas that we've just been doing it this way for who knows how long. And in relation to this, if something's not working, find out why. And I love this quote that leadership and leading is action. It's a verb. It's not a title. It's not a position. It's doing. And, if we're seeing something and it feels like busy work, getting beyond the symptom of that and digging a little deeper to figure out, well, what might be causing this? And can I come up with a couple of solutions? It's difficult for anyone, and maybe especially in a time when we are already at our cognitive capacity, it's difficult for anyone to come up with a blue sky solution. Just out of the blue, here's this problem, I'm going to solve it. And I think as a leader, when problems are brought to us, there's this accompanying expectation that I'm bringing you this problem and now you're going to solve it, right? And that can be really difficult. Instead, think of a few solutions that might go along with that issue and present them as such. Hey, I've been thinking about this. It seems like the way we're doing things now isn't as impactful. We're not getting the outcome we had hoped for anymore. What if we tried it a couple of different ways? And in doing that, you're not only helping the leader determine what might be the best course of action, you're actually setting up for yourself some boundary conditions so that the next time something occurs to you or you find the next problem to be solved, you kind of know the limits of what you can push for, right? And taking action is an empowering emotion. Knowing that you helped to solve something and actually improve it, not just for the students or the people you serve, but for yourself, for your team, for your leader, it's uplifting. It can actually help counter some of that anxiety and uncertainty that we're experiencing right now. And then similarly, with leaders needing to practice compassion, we need to do this for ourselves and for our team, but also for our leaders. If you think about that view from the bridge of the ship, I think sometimes we expect that the leaders do have all the answers, that because they're so much higher in that ship, they're further up and they can see that somehow they can magically see all the way to the horizon and there's a clear path, and they're just withholding information from us. But if you recall that picture, you could only see about 1 or 2 waves ahead. There wasn't some clear view to the horizon here. It's we are acting in times of uncertainty, and unless you lived through the Spanish influenza, I don't think this is a precedented time period. We don't know what the new normal looks like. So I think we all have to practice compassion, not just for ourselves and our teammates, but also for our leaders, and engage in co-creation with them rather than expecting them to have magically all these answers. So if you think about success truly as something that we co-create together, what we need from leaders is clear and intentional communication, creating this sense of community and collaboration. And I use that word intentional very intentionally. This doesn't happen by accident. You do have to put effort into it. But then also from teams, leaders need proactive communication to not be expected to be mind readers, and really having their folks engage in creative problem solving and compassion for each other, their coworkers, and for the leader. So we have a resource that we've created. It's the ASU Leadership Portal, and the URL's right there. It's portal.leadership.asu.edu. And this is meant in the way of leading being a verb. So this is leaders at all level, regardless of title. If you try to log in and you don't have a director of or assistant director of title, it's not going to block you from getting there. These are resources, webinars, recorded webinars, live webinars upcoming, and stories from leaders as they've been trying to navigate what this experience has been. So hopefully this can be a resource to folks. And with that, I would love for us to learn from each other and maybe co-create some solutions together about what we can do to better support each other and our leaders. Carlos will be sending everybody to breakout rooms. It'll be created at random. You're going to get a series of 2 questions. And for each question, you will have an option for how you would like to answer it, whether you would like to answer it from the viewpoint of a leader or from the viewpoint of the team members. So however you choose to engage with the question is up to you. There is a Google Doc that we'll be using to collect some of the answers so that we can carry them forward into the plenary sessions. I think Carlos was going to send the Google Doc link for the breakouts. If you have not done that, Carlos, I would appreciate that. And then we will come back. I know it says 10:13. I believe our timeline has gone a little bit. We've been extended a little bit now. So we'll come back and share collectively the top ideas that came out of the breakout groups. So Carlos, if you wouldn't mind sending folks to their breakout rooms.
Good. I'll be sending everybody now.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. Okay, we're good. Everybody's sent to the sessions now.
Woohoo!
Okay, so let me just send the link to everybody.
In here, I want to be respectful of time.
Cary, I was trying to put notes in the Google Doc, but I had to request edit access.
You did. That's...
Yeah, we ran into a similar issue as well.
Oh.
I think that was across the board. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm still waiting on that, which is, I just want to let you know that's why my notes aren't in there yet.
No, I appreciate that. Let's see.
If you click the request access button, Erin's been really quick about granting that access. You just need to refresh the your browser window and you'll get that edit access.
Thanks, Ruby. I'll refresh.
And this was a good lesson for me. I might not have had enough time for a round of 2 questions. So thank you all for your patience with my process as well. I appreciate it. As we are wrapping up, is there anything that anyone particularly found impactful or helpful and would like to share with the larger group? All right. Yeah, yes, please.
I think a theme that kind of naturally came up for all of us was how to emulate in-person connection, whether it was through our work or with our team. So I know like Ruby mentioned happy hours, so, and then you know, either connecting to our purpose and aligning that way, but I think it was how do we emulate connection, or I think that was kind of our theme that came up, which was mentioned. So.
I like that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share anything? Is there anything else you feel that Manu and I missed as we were talking about what teams need from leaders or leaders need from teams that you feel was a glaring omission and needs to be shared? All right, well, I'm not sure what the timing is, but I think we're going to wrap up, and I very much appreciate you all joining me this morning, and please feel free to shoot me an email if you have any thoughts or comments, and we will capture from the chats, anything that wasn't able to get into the Google Doc because of permission issues. So thank you for your patience as well. Hope you have a fabulous rest of Empower, and look forward to engaging with you all again.
So Cary, where do we go from here? Do we go back to our meeting to